Good afternoon. Today is Monday, April 13, and this is the beginning of the third week of our online presentations. We are starting now on materials that we're going to be using to grade you in the fourth quarter. And remember, first of all, that the grade that you got in the third quarter is your base. Your grade cannot go any lower than the third quarter base. But in order now to improve that score, because many of you wish to do that, then you will want your grade for any of these skills to exceed your third quarter grade. So if you had, let's say, 72%, which is a C minus for your third quarter grade, then you must, with each skill, you must exceed, or at least the total number of skills that we have for any particular grading section, which we call a test. That has to be an average that exceeds this third quarter grade score of yours. So just to give you an example, you're going to get 5 separate skills in this area, and those 5 separate skills will each have a score. You add those scores up and you divide by 5. That will give you the average scored. And to improve your grade, it must exceed that third quarter grade. If it does not exceed it, then your grade just stays the same as it did before for that particular test, and then we move on. Okay? All right. So the goal is to try to improve. Now, with translations, we've got this rule that you need to follow, and I'm going to move this up a little bit so you can see this just a bit better. All right, so the rule is that a translation, which is a rigid transformation, shifts each point the same distance horizontally and the same distance vertically. That's the thing about rigid transformations. If you have points shifting at different distances, then you get a completely different shape, and that's not a rigid transformation. So you want it to stay rigid. So to do this, the image of a point, which has x and y coordinates, will be translated h units horizontally and k units vertically. So example of this kind of a translation would be x plus h for the new x coordinate and y plus k for the new or prime y coordinate. Then the next point is if h is positive, the point is translated to the right. If h is negative, the point is translated to the left. If k is positive, the point is translated up, and if k is negative, the point is translated down. Okay. So you're going to be working off of an XY coordinate grid. You must have this. And remember, I told you before, you can go online really anywhere, but mathaids.com, which shows down here, that's a good one to go to because you can get this grid for free. You just have to print it. If you don't have this, then you're just going to have to make a grid of your own, or you can, if you're careful, you can draw it freehand. You just have to do little tick marks for every one of the various coordinate units. Okay, and again, you can erase this. That's the whole idea of using the plastic sheeting on it and a dry erase marker. Okay, all right. So let's go to our example. Now, this is the one and only example, but because of these involved rules, we have to kind of go through this and make sure that we understand what we're doing. So first of all, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually write the coordinates for P and Q and P prime and Q prime. So I'm going to do that down here. So P is, its x coordinate is, x is, looks like -5. And its y coordinate is -4. Okay, and Q's is x is -1, y is -1. Now, here's the beauty of this. We really don't need both P and Q. We only need 1 point, because what we said before is if you find how far to the, horizontally and vertically you move 1 point, everything else moves the same way. So we really don't need both of these points. We only need one of them. And then we need one of these over here that corresponds to the one we choose. So looking at this, I'm going to choose Q. I'm going to erase the coordinates for P, and we're just going to work with Q. Okay. All right. So this is our X1, and this is our Y1. Why am I calling these X1, Y1? Because it's the first point we're using. Then over here, here's Q prime. Its coordinates are, let's see, X is 6, and Y is, oh wait, yes, X is 6 and Y is 10. So we're going to call those X2 and Y2. All right. So what we want to do is we want to create a rule, and the rule actually, the format for the rule, this is your proposed rule. X comma y such that x is x plus certain distance change and y is y plus a certain distance changed. That's basically what it is. So we chose Q, and so we chose Q to translate. So Q's coordinates are going to be 6 and 10, I believe. Let me see here. No, I take that back. Yeah, 6 and 10. So we choose Q to translate. Well, that's Q and that's Q prime. So 6 and 10 is Q prime. So we're going to deal with both of these. All right. So now we know what we're going to use for our translation. We're going to go ahead and we're going to actually do the translation. Now, I'm going to show you what it looks like first. I think that's easier to do, and then we're going to do the actual math. So here is our same XY coordinate grid with PQ and P prime, Q prime. And now you can see using Q here, we went from where X is 1, Y is 1. So we'll call this again X1, Y1. And we're going to call this X2, Y2. And so what's going to happen here is we are going to find out what the distance change is, first of all for our X, and then second of all for our Y. And our X is always horizontal. So we're going from the X coordinate here, which is -1 for Q, to the X coordinate for where Q prime is, and it's actually over here at 6. Okay, so if you look at that, basically what you're doing is you've got a coordinate of X is -1, Y is -1, so X is -1, and you've got a coordinate over here of X is 6. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract the x2 from the x1. So I'm going to take 6 minus and then -1. And so that's going to equal 6 plus 1, or 7 units. So that means that we're going from this point over here to 6, 7 units. Let's count it and make sure. So going from here to here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and yes, 7 units. So that works. Okay. Now up here, we're going from where Y is -1. Okay, this is -1. And that's the Y1. And Y2 is up here at 10. So this is X2, Y2. And so we're going to take 10 and and we're going to subtract -1. And of course that equals 10 plus 1, which equals 11. So the distance from here up to here should be 11 units. Let's count them. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 units. So yes, that's the difference. Okay. Now we could easily write our rule at this point, but I want to show you the math that goes with it. So basically, the coordinates of Q and Q prime Q are, let's see here, -1, -1. So that's our x1, y1. And Q prime are 6, 10. And so that's x2, y2. All right? So what you're doing is subtracting. So subtract x2, or I should say subtract x1 from x2. And so my x1 here is -1. And I'm going to subtract it. Oh, we're subtracting x1 from x2. That means you're going with x2 first. Sorry about that. So x2 is -1 minus x1, which is -1. I'm sorry. -1, -1, yeah. So we should be writing it like this, -1, -1. There we go. So, did I do that right? No, I didn't. I'm sorry. x2 is 6. Okay, now we got it right. x2 is 6. x1 is -1, so I've got those down. So 6 minus 1. And 6 minus 1, 6 minus -1. -1. There we go. So again, 6 subtract -1. So 6 minus -1 equals 6 plus 1, which equals 7. Okay? All right. Now you notice it's kind of confusing. You have to think this through. You're subtracting x1 from the x2. So that means you start out with the x2, you're subtracting it, you have a subtraction sign, and then x1 just happens to be a negative number. So it's -1, and that turns out to be a negative. So you have 6 minus -1 is 6 plus 1, which is 7. All right, now we're going to subtract y1 from y2. So that's going to equal, my y1 here is, I'm sorry, we're going to start with a y2 again. So the y2 is, y2 is 10 minus, because we're subtracting, my y1 is -1. Okay, and so that equals 10, and -1 is plus 1, so that means equals 11. So the two coordinate changes, this is your new x, so this is your x prime, if you will. Well, it's the difference, so let's just do it this way. So you're going to go and you're going to write your new rule. So the rule will be your x y is now, in your translation, x plus 7. Here's your 7, you're putting it here, comma, y plus 11. Okay? And that's your rule, that's your answer that you would be putting into the book, okay? Or into your IXL, not the book. Your online book, if you will. Okay, so bottom line, go through these rules, the rules that we started with at the beginning here. Make sure you understand them, okay? Play with math on this. Go through and remember this is on a YouTube video. You can stop it, you can start it. No issues. And make sure you've got everything drawn out correctly. Put this as a template by your side as you do these. Okay? All right. Again, your goal is to try to improve your grade so that whatever score you get exceeds your third quarter grade by some amount. Okay? And that will help bring your grade up. All right. Thank you very much. Have a great afternoon. I'll see you tomorrow.